Hello guys, how's it going? My name is Dalaran. Today is April the 1st. April Fool's Day, everybody. How's it going? Hopefully everybody's having a good one. Today's video, I don't actually want to do too much of April Fooling for you guys. At least not that much. I just kind of want to talk a bit about one of the updates that was posted on Wowhead as an obvious April Fool's joke. But I kind of missed the boat when talking about this possible, maybe available in the future, could maybe be a potential allied race, but very unlikely, the Lightbound Undead race. Basically, undead imbued with the light that would basically be for the Alliance. If that idea doesn't make sense to you, a lot of you, I do want to give a bit of a explanation as to what is the possibility, and then talk a bit about it since Wowhead decided for April Fools, talk about 8.2 with Lightbound Undead, Void Touch customizations, and Pepe goggles. So let's just dive into it. First of all, what the hell is a Lightbound Undead? The first Lightbound Undead, which I'm kind of sad about it to be honest, at least a Lightbound Undead that I'm aware of, are the ones that were in a book that went between Legion and BFA. I really would love for these kind of stories to play out as an actual quest line instead of having to, go and read. I mean, yeah, it sounds like very Dalaran, you got that NA education going on, but I think it'll be better and easier to absorb all this stuff through the game itself. It's great that you have to go to other sources, but it almost makes me feel like as if it's not really canon. It is there, it is technically canon, everybody says it's canon, but when you don't experience it and rather have to read about it in a separate format other than what we are generally fed, which is the game, I feel like it loses some of its potential value. Or maybe it feels like the Blizzard is less likely to make it as part of the game style because it's just an aside, just an extra tidbit, just some side information that's not very important for the general audience. Let's talk about the potential of the Lightbound race. They were originally discovered with Kalia Menethil. Kalia Menethil being the sister to Arthas Menethil, part of the Menethil family. Now, I'm not exactly 100% sure of the exact account for the story, but generally, after the fall of Legion, there was some sort of a bit of talks between Alliance and Horde, where some of the people of the Alliance might be able to meet some of the undead, the Forsaken of the Horde, as there's actually some family members. So you had brothers meeting brothers, you had parents meeting children, you had children meeting their parents for the first time as undead, and it was some kind of like a, a little bit of a meet and greet type of deal. And then, of course, Sylvanas ruins things like she's always done this so far of BFA and kills a bunch of people. One of the people that takes a bit of damage is Kalia Menethil, and apparently she's actually an NPC for the Priest Order Hall. And they take her back to the Order Hall and imbue her dead body with the light. So she's basically an undead with the light imbued in her, and she's basically, at the end of the story, was trying to learn how to live with herself, more or less. So now that we got the basics out of the way, I guess the potential for a Lightbound Undead race could be a possibility if they got one to work. Maybe they could get a bunch of them to work. Maybe they could get a bunch of Forsaken, with Sylvanas being as crazy as she is, to defect to the Alliance, or maybe to resurrect those already dead through the power of light. Now you might think that undead being infused with light just wouldn't really work. It's very similar to, let's say, Alaria being, the void elf, I guess that she is, to have anything to do with the light. You would think that they would just repel each other. You have paladins from Warcraft 3 that have been literally just designed to fight anything evil, and one of them being the Scourge, and they fought it fairly effectively. Now, the light isn't actually the opposite of undeath, not exactly. There was an image that was put out back in Legion, and I thought it was awesome. I looked at this thing in detail, but I never really paid much attention to it. But when you take a look at it here, it might make some sense and might help you adjust to the idea that maybe Light Force, or I guess Light Infused Undead, could possibly be a possibility for the Alliance. Take a look at the image, you actually have a bunch of different aspects of the World of Warcraft universe. Down in the center, you get reality. Then on the sides, you have Shadowlands and Emerald Dream. Then you have the elements, air, fire, spirit, water, earth, decay. Then you have much bigger concepts in general. You have the powers of the Burning Legion. You have the Wild Gods, the Titans, as well as Undead. And then you see kind of like what aspects they belong to. You have wild gods belonging to nature, which is all part of life. You have the titans belonging to the arcane, which is part of the order. The opposite of the titans and the order is disorder. The titans are in some sense opposite of the burning legion. You have the arcane versus the fell. They're just opposite. It's a lot easier to see it when you take a look at the light as well as the shadow. You have light, holy, the Naru, versus shadow, shadow void, the void lords, the old gods. Those could be as far apart from each other as possible. And when you take a look at the sides, the top left and the bottom right, you have top left life, nature, wild gods. This makes you think of all the types of druids in the world. And on the bottom right, death, necromantic, undead. Now, unless we're getting ourselves some necromancers in the game, maybe we could be getting some undead. Undead and light are not exactly the opposite of each other, but life and death, nature, necromantic, wild gods and undead, the undeath and the scourge and the forsaken, the death is really opposite of life. So in a sense, a undead, let's say imbued as a druid, like an undead druid, would be far less likely if we were to follow this picture graph. Instead, but an undead with the light could be a potential possibility. Also in the past, Blizzard have had undead NPCs that are technically paladins, that technically have paladin-based abilities, very similar to the same paladin abilities that we have right now. Never a playable character, usually the bad guy NPC that you have to slay in a quest or in a dungeon, but that has been a possibility in the past. Kind of like how they made Zandalari paladins, I think it could be a possibility that eventually maybe some specific undead, like maybe a light-infused undead of the Alliance, could potentially be paladins. Looking back into the actual content of the Wowhead, they have some ideas. Of course, it's all a joke, it's all just for goofs and gaffs, but the Lightbound Undead, and they have some of the possible classes. Data shows Lightbound Undead, data, quote unquote, would be hunters, mages, paladins, priest, rogue, and warrior. That's actually a pretty good variety of classes. Maybe monks. There are some classes that can't be monks, like Lightforged and I. And it actually would make sense if the Lightforged, that monk stuff they can't be. They can't be. Druids, obviously not. Shamans, obviously not. So really, it would cover all the bases. Now, of course, it wouldn't cover Death Knights, because then you would have Light, but then you have Death Knight. But then again, technically those two would work, technically, but I don't really know. But some of the options that they have for customization, like the hair options, the face options, which is really just the same faces, but without any of the extra jaw rips and missing bottom jaw with the tongue hanging out and any of that other biker getup that they got going on. I think it would actually be kind of lame to look at, first of all, because it doesn't have nearly as much detail, but maybe a possibility. Maybe Blizzard would actually implement it with different hair choices, and even to the point where the skin tones could be more and more and more human. If you take a look at some of the skin tones, they have a little bit of those yellow spots in there. There's a bit of spine stuff, a bit of side stuff, but very, very human-like texture for the skin. Very healthy. This one's more or less anemic, and then you're getting close to the deader and even deader than that. Would I personally like this? Generally, as long as they have a brand new racial that's really cool and fun to play with, that is enough for me to get a little bit of that change of gameplay. Of course, looks is half the battle, but for me personally, a brand new racial, even if it's like a model that's being reused, a model being reused wasn't really an issue for me for the Void Elves, or the Lightforged Janai, or the Dark Iron Dwarves, or really none of the other allied races. I think it's cool that they add brand new allied races, which is not really all that physically and visually different compared to, let's say, Kul Chirans or Zandalari. For the most part, males and females are mostly different. But the racials that allows you, let's say you are a Kul Chiran warrior and a Dark Iron warrior. Both of you are going to go through the same rotation, but the small differences of how you use your racials, the passes that you get, is going to make a difference for me at least. And I always found that very interesting and intriguing. Taking a look at some of the other stuff they got for the Wowhead, this is where you kind of start, if you were hyped at one point, you quickly realize that yes, this is April Fool's. Void touch customization Barons with Void with Barons chat. Win Barons Warfront 10 times. First of all, I'll be kind of 100% behind the Barons achievement or kind of a Barrens Warfront. I hope they don't completely obliterate Barrens and it doesn't become like a world quest area that you can't ever go to, because I think people would miss Barrens too much. And then you have of course, the reskins for the Void Shamans or the Void Orcs. I think the male orc would actually look pretty awesome. And then you have the Void females humans and Void male humans. Honestly, if you were a Shadow Priest and you could look like that 24/7, I think it will actually be kind of cool. I'm not gonna lie, if that could be something you could potentially have at all times, kind of like as this being the shadow form, I wouldn't say that would be all that bad. I think it would be kind of cool. But I guess we'll find out what some of these things are true and which ones are not. Pretty sure this one is not true with the Pepe goggles. But maybe that could be a possibility. Really hard to tell for now. I guess we'll have to wait until April Fool's actually comes out. But the idea of Lightbound Undead is really not out of the park for me. I kind of like it. I kind of dig it. There's a lore reasons for it, so for me it's good enough. Anyway, just missed that topic completely when it was fresh. Just kind of wanted to type in a little bit of let you guys know what I'm thinking about it. But yeah, thank you guys so much for watching. Hope you guys enjoyed. I'll see all of you guys in another video.